The interview. Knowing what to expect helps you better prepare to interview successfully. The best ways to prepare to do well at an interview are to know yourself and your qualifications and what the employer needs. Employers are busy people who don't have time to conduct interviews with people who are unlikely job candidates. You obviously meet the minimum qualifications. The interviewer wants to see whether you are a person who can back up your qualifications, communicate well, and contribute to the organization. By learning what will be expected of you at an interview and practicing your presentation skills, you can attend each interview with confidence and enthusiasm. A common reason for not being hired is a lack of preparation for the interview. Good sales presentations are based on showing customers, in this case employers, how they can benefit by buying a product, or in this case, by hiring you. If you attend an interview without knowing anything about what the employer is looking for, you put yourself at a disadvantage. To be your best during the interview, you must prepare in advance. Identify how you meet their needs, anticipate the types of questions to be asked, create examples to demonstrate your qualifications, and prepare appropriate questions to ask. Many applicants view the interviewer as a confident person who has all the power in the hiring process. In reality, interviewers may be experiencing a number of pressures. I listed a few here on the slide. Some interviews are highly structured, where a candidate is asked the same set of prepared questions. Others are more like a conversation, with topics and questions generated freely. Most interviews fall somewhere between these patterns. Either way, it's important to know what to expect. Here are a few traditional questions. How would you describe yourself? What are your long-range career objectives? Why did you choose this career? What makes you qualified for this position? How well do you work with people? And what motivates you to go the extra mile on the job? These are very common questions. You can answer them in many ways, which actually can present a problem if your answers are too vague or not related to the job under consideration. In each case, what employers want to know is how your answer applies to them. You guys take a second and look at these three questions and think to yourselves, how would you answer these questions? Behavioral interviews have been part of the hiring process in many large organizations since the 1970s and are being increasingly used in healthcare industry. In this type of interview, applicants are asked questions about their past performance and how they handled specific situations. Behavioral interviews are based on the premise that past performance is a good indicator of future performance. Interviewers prepare in advance by listing the key qualifications for the jobs they post. Then they develop questions to help determine whether applicants possess the desired characteristics. Questioning about real events are more difficult for applicants to answer because they must be supported by facts. Take a quick look at Table 14.1 on page 264 in your textbook to see several examples of behavioral interview questions. Many job search experts recommend using the STAR approach when answering a behavioral question. The key is to anticipate the kinds of qualifications an employer wants and then search your inventory and memory for experiences that you have illustrate that qualification. Always listen carefully in an interview. Explain what happened, what you learned, and how the results made a difference to you. If you'll also refer to box 14.1 on page 265 of your textbook, you'll find a list of situational questions. Occupation-specific questions. Questions in this category explore your specific knowledge, skill mastery, willingness to learn new procedures, and the general content of your training. If you are asked to perform a practical test that is appropriate for your level of training, do so willingly. Use the request to show that you have confidence in your abilities and can handle stress. Remember to be realistic when applying for jobs. Don't waste employers' time or your own interviewing for jobs with conditions you already know are impossible for you to meet. Perhaps you're applying for a full-time position and you can only work part-time. That position you would want to avoid. Perhaps it falls under hours that you know you can't work. So think about it before you apply to these positions and make sure that you can meet the requirements. Personality tests. Certain jobs require specific characteristics, and these are more reliably determined by tests than by interviews. Another claim is that individuals hired tend to be happier with their jobs because of this matching process. It is said that it is impossible to study for a personality test. However, one psychologist suggests that the most important thing is to know who you are and to be in touch with your own core values, your own strengths, and your own limitations. Some employers are conducting interviews with the help of a computer. The advantage for the employer, in addition to saving time, is that every applicant is asked a prepared set of questions, often up to 100. This enables the comparison of apples with apples when deciding who to interview in person. If you are ever faced with a computerized interview, make sure not to give unnecessary information that may harm your chance of getting hired. Some organizations are using group interviews in which several job applicants are interviewed at the same time. You may or may not know in advance if you will be participating in a group interview. If it comes as a surprise, do not show annoyance, shock, or surprise. If you know you will be attending a panel interview, take special care with your appearance, body language, and presentation skills. You always want to address the other candidates that are with you by name. Don't repeat information that has already been given by another. Speak up when you have something to say, but don't interrupt others. And give praise when appropriate to the other candidates. A telephone interview is used by some organizations to reduce the number of applicants who are interviewed face to face. Your goals when participating in a phone interview are to show your enthusiasm and qualifications for the job in question and be invited to an in-person interview. Send a thank you note as you would for an in-person interview. Prepare yourself to answer a variety of questions. Videotaping or having an observer take notes can be helpful, even if it's a little nerve-wracking. It's better to make a few mistakes now so you can avoid them at the interviews. The career services personnel at school is familiar with the interviewing practices of facilities in our area and can give you additional information about what to expect and how to prepare best. Having everything you need at the interview will help you feel organized and confident. It also demonstrates to employers that you are organized and think ahead. What you take may differ, but here are a few suggestions of things to take along. Definitely take along extra copies of your resume. Take your portfolio if you have one, which we all know you guys will. Copies of any licenses or certificates, perhaps. Copies of your reference sheet, a notepad and a pen for any information you may want to write down, your list of questions, and data to help fill out the applications, such as your social security number, driver's license, etc. The average person forms a strong opinion of another in less than 1 minute. This is why so much emphasis is placed on professional appearance both during the job search and later on the job. As we've discussed before, your appearance is extremely important, and being on time. What are some ways to ensure you are on time? You should write down the date, the exact time, ask for directions, inquire about bus stops, and plan to be about 10 minutes early. Those are all really great ways to make sure you will arrive on time. Express that you are grateful for the opportunity for an interview. Try to be at ease and act naturally while maintaining your best manners. Always maintain eye contact. Give a firm handshake. And don't sit down until you have been offered a chair or putting yourself down. Chewing gum. Appearing to snoop on the interviewer's desk. Another important reason why to try and maintain the eye contact. Do not discuss your personal problems. And whatever you do, do not answer your phone. Your phone ringer should be off during an interview if you have to bring it in with you at all. Also remember, you don't want to come across stiff or stuffy, but you do want to come across as professional. Apply your communication skills. Listen carefully to the interviewer. Pause to think and compose a good answer. You are more likely to be evaluated on the quality of your answer, not on how quickly you can give it. Take a look at Table 14.2 on page 271 to see examples of mirroring approach. Also, the Q&A with healthcare professionals on page 271. I found those both very, very informative. When you're speaking, do your best to present your ideas in an organized manner so they are easy for the listener to follow. Non-verbal communication. It can make or break you. It absolutely can be the reason you do or do not receive that position. What you do communicates more than what you say. Half the meaning of our messages is communicated non-verbally. Again, this means body language, facial expressions. Be aware of how important your actions are, and develop a positive attitude and be confident. Your portfolio can be a very effective way to support your claims of competence by providing evidence of your accomplishments and qualifications. Using your portfolio, appropriate situations would be to answer questions about skills or abilities, for an interviewer who shares a problem or concern, if interviewer is unfamiliar with contents of your training program, or if they ask about verification of certifications and licenses. All of those things would be found in your portfolio. Some employers are ignorant of the laws, or if the interview becomes friendly and conversational, personal information can be shared. Take a few minutes to look at Table 14.4 on page 274 to see difficult interview situations and how you can handle them. Illegal questions put you in a difficult situation, and there are no easy formulas for handling them. Here are a list of a few questions that legally they cannot ask you. One way you can respond is answer honestly. Respond to the interviewer's apparent concern, refuse to answer, or excuse yourself and leave. It really depends on what the question is and how you feel about it. You can refer to Table 14.5 on page 275 and 14.6 on page 275 for a list of, again, illegal questions and how to respond. Interviews are a time to do your best to stay positive. They are not the place to bring up problems or what you believe you can't do or don't want to do. Potential employers realize they may someday be your previous employer and don't want to be the subject of your comments to others in the profession. You want to emphasize the positive aspects of your skills and character, not your weaknesses. You have the right and the responsibility to evaluate the opportunities presented by the jobs you are applying for. What you ask will depend on the job, the interviewer, and how much you already know about the job and organization. It is a good idea to prepare in advance a list of general questions along with a few that are specific to the job and the facility. See page 277 for examples of questions you can ask. It is important to be sensitive to any signals the interviewer gives that it is time to wrap it up. Failure to do so shows a lack of consideration for his or her time, and this is definitely not the parting message you want to leave. Tell the interviewer why you believe you can make a contribution, what impressed you about the organization, why you believe your qualifications fit the position, and so on. Inquire about when the hiring decision will be made. Find out if there is anything more you need to do or send to the employer. If you have any questions, we'll see you on Zoom.